We are live. Welcome to 1939's The Hunchback of Notre Dame thoughts film. Now, if you don't care about these disclaimers, I try to keep them short and relevant, but your mileage may vary. You can skip right ahead to one of the sections via the description box. Now, this video contains spoilers both for this movie and the animated Disney version. These are the only two that I've watched. I haven't read the book or seen any version of the play or anything. I won't be spoiling, but I did also rewatch the first Darkman movie since it clearly takes some inspiration from this story. And honestly, I really don't need much of an excuse to watch Darkman for, I don't know, the 20th time by now. Now, let's see. I have watched both the black and white and colorized version of this. I'm not sure I'm going to be commenting much on the differences. I mean, if you don't mind watching black and white movies, watch it black and white. That's, the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. Now, let's see. Content warning slash trigger warning. I am going to be discussing the potentially triggering content of this movie, rape and execution. Now, let's see. I don't have a problem with violence and gore in general. The Thing is one of my favorite horror movies in general. I also have Cronenberg's The Fly, Video Drone, etc. Personally, I don't think it's wrong to put violence in fiction except for the following, well, exceptions. If it could encourage xenophobia, and if it could make people think that violence is a solution. There are almost no problems in real life that it actually solves. And this is one of those movies, in this case, it's specifically, the movie is very much against xenophobia, and Clopin literally dies because, sorry, specifically because he thought that violence was the right solution to the attack on Esmeralda. And he even, he dies realizing, he should have had more faith in humanity and ideas. Now, I mean, I suppose you could say that, the when Quasimodo throws Frollo off the top of the no or top off Notre Dame, that solves that problem. But he was going to be arrested anyway. It's just more cathartic for the audience that he's thrown. Yeah. Now, I don't have a problem with homosexuality, nudity, disturbing, upsetting material in general. Monsters, one of my favorite movies. In my opinion, the only way sex can be wrong is if consent is violated and or it's cheating. And I do think there are relatively few situations where rape should appear in fiction. Ideally, it should explore what rape does to survivors. It should not be erotic, funny throwaway. It should not be in the movie simply to motivate a man to get revenge for someone raping one of his loved ones. And again, this movie, I suppose I should say briefly, what I just read is literally the standard. That's what I don't always read it aloud, but that's what I have written to go into. And the following is not part of my prepared statement. This is another movie that really understands that, the ultimately there isn't a depiction of rape of Esmeralda, but every time Frollo is near her, it's what's the word? It's in the it's in the air. I guess is the you know there's a very real chance he is basically just waiting for a chance to rape her, and the movie is specifically about how evil he is. For he there are four men in this movie who fall for Esmeralda, and two of the other ones realize, of the four men total, there are three. Phoebus is the only one that she loves back. Three of them realize that she doesn't love them, even though they love her, and the only of the three to still try to force her to be with him is the villain, is Frollo. So, I suppose, not everybody thinks equally highly of Gringoire and Quasimodo, and certainly, but both of them are good guys in this movie. I once again, I haven't watched, but I understand that the silent version, I'm afraid I don't remember when it came out, but 1920 something, I feel like, or maybe it was even earlier, but in that, Quasimodo is the monster, similar to like a Frankenstein or something. Frankenstein's monster. I know some people get conniption fits when people don't say that. I feel like Linkara put it very well. Technically, he is the son of Dr. Frankenstein, so his last name would be Frankenstein. So you could just call him Frankenstein for whatever. Yeah. So the two good guys don't try to force her to be, the when when Gringoire realizes that she can only love him as a friend, he says, I would rather have you in my life as a friend than not have you in my life at all. And I respect that. And there at the end, I don't think Quasimodo ever directly says it, but there at the end of the movie, he doesn't try to fight. Frollo comes to kill both Esmeralda. Yeah, he's there to kill Esmeralda. He's just also going to. Sorry, he is also going to kill Quasimodo, or he's willing to kill him if it's necessary in order to get to Esmeralda. And Quasimodo kills him in part in self-defense. He goes for the knife again. He had his chance to surrender, basically. Quasimodo doesn't attack him when he drops the knife. He attacks him when he goes for the knife again. So, when Gringoire, wait, I forget. Does she go down to meet Gringoire, or does Gringoire come up to get her? I think she goes down to meet Gringoire. But anyway, either way, Quasimodo doesn't try to prevent the two of them from meeting back up when, let me think. I think there's a decent chance that he knows that the two of them, would get back together, since you know, he becomes aware that she's going to be executed. So clearly he has some understanding of what happens, even when he isn't present while it's happening. Yeah. I won't be swearing in this video, and I'm going to do everything I can to avoid ableist language. I can't promise I'll be perfect about it, so if I accidentally slip up, please know it's accidental. It's not. I really don't think. I don't think anybody should be made fun of for any disability. That now let's see. I record this as soon as I can get to the computer after watching the movie. Now, let's see. This video is not a review, it's a series of, well, thoughts. I, yeah, let's see. Yeah, I try to make it analysis. I might make some jokes, but it's not that I don't take the movie seriously, or the issues explored seriously. Now, but yeah, in the first section, thoughts that I had while watching in chronological order. In the second section, thoughts I had before watching, and the final section is, stuff I think is worthwhile to get into on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, IMDb, and Wikipedia. And for recording this, I have read all except the spoiler-free IMDb review. Sorry, the user submitted IMDb reviews. Although I'm not sure I'm going to get into any of those in this video. Now, this video is not me saying I'm smarter than you or know more or know better than you, the stuff I say in this video. I'm not saying only I could or have thought of it. It's just stuff I want to talk about and think others would enjoy listening to. Sorry. I made in this video discuss an issue that doesn't affect me or doesn't affect me as much as does certain minorities. I'm not trying to lecture those that it affects. In part, I'm speaking to others who are not in those minorities so we can better empathize with those minorities. And in part, I am expressing my interpretation of the material without claiming it's as valid as the interpretation of members of the minorities. And let's I got this movie on sale, so anything negative I say in this is not out of bitterness. Not sure I'm going to be saying very much negative, but anyway. I also do not feel like the movie wasted my time. Nobody forced me to watch it or to make this video. And I know some people really don't like how this changes the ending. You know, I'm not going to be restating what Lindsay Ellis said. I'm just going to direct you to her excellent video. I believe it's called The Case for Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. In that she is primarily talking about the Disney version, not this movie, but she does talk about this movie as well. And a lot of what she says can be, you know, applied to this movie. It's just, again, she is primarily focusing on that movie because it is so well known and was, you know, fairly negatively received. And I think she makes a good case for why a lot of the negative really wasn't, like, yeah, yeah, she made an excellent video. I'm not gonna try to just, to the best of my ability, the negative things I say in this video are fair criticisms based on budget, when it came out, what it was trying to achieve, etc. Now, I watched some YouTube videos and special features on DVD and Blu-ray before doing this video. I first watched this in the year 2010, and I've watched it, I think, twice since, maybe only once, before now watching it today, before now blogging about it. So, my own quote-unquote film critic rating for this is a 9 out of 10, and that's also my personal rating. There's really almost nothing in this that I think should, you know, could have been any better than it's nearly flawless. Notes taken while watching. With almost no exception, every scene you're worried something awful will happen to someone you empathize with. And that really gets across. It was a very volatile time and place. Things could very quickly turn dangerous for almost anyone there, though obviously the less power you had, the more likely you would be victimized. But yeah, I mean, even like Phoebus ends up dead, and Frollo goes unpunished for a while of the movie, where there's much greater threat to Esmeralda. You know, the Gringoire points out, how could she possibly have done that when he's, much bigger and stronger than her? But they won't listen to that. They don't think, well, was there someone nearby who was big and strong that could maybe have done it? Which also does a really great job of pointing out that really, you know, back then, if you had power yourself, you could get away with treating Romani extremely badly. And that's another thing. I'm going to try really hard not to use the other term. Let's see. Obviously, if I say it, it's it starts with a G and ends with a Y. Yeah, I think that should be, you know, I'm going to try to use the term Romani. You know, I'm not 100% certain, was it considered offensive when they made the movie? I don't know. Now, in the original book, apparently Hugo was worried that the printing press was going to take over for the language of architecture, and you know, in part that of the Notre Dame. And this movie starts by showing the beautiful architecture of Notre Dame, but then discussing the benefits of the printing press, how useful it is for spreading information, which is, of course, you know, at the time of Hitler very much wanted to control the spread of information. You know, excuse me, I guess it's possible that I wouldn't be able to come up with this off the top of my head if I hadn't fairly recently rewatched and reviewed it, or sorry, done a video on it. But let's see, Sophie Scholl, The Final Days, I think is the full title, is a movie that is completely based on fact, that details the let's go with the case against the I'm not going to give away the ending, although it is based on fact, so it's not anyway. But they want, you know, the Nazis wanted to give this young woman, you know, 21-year-old, I think, woman, the death penalty for spreading flyers that promoted ideas against Hitler. They didn't, like, say we should, you know, break in when Hitler is sleeping and cut his throat in the night. No, they just said he's going to lose the war. You know, this is only going to end badly for us. We have to rise up against him, and that was punishable by death. You know, so yeah. Let's see, and you know, yeah, and right after the king does indeed talk about Notre Dame architecture's the language of the past. You know, this is something I don't think Linzalis, you know, brings this up, and I don't know, it's possible that it's, again, I haven't read the original novel, but I do think it is an interesting, because by 1939, it wasn't, you know, the idea of restoring Notre Dame, that wasn't really, you know, like Linzalis points out, that battle, Hugo won the battle. You know, he didn't, there was no need to keep fighting that particular battle. Notre Dame had been restored. It hadn't been, you know, today it has been, sadly, but the yeah, you know, so it, you know, but in 1939, the idea of that dictators and evil people, other, you know, evil people in general, try to limit the spread of information, where, you know, as far as I understand, this the king in this is, you know, was a particularly good king, one who had faith in the, you know, yeah, he is remembered as a good king and was considered at the time to be a good king, and he is fully in favor of the printing press. So that's a great, you know, yeah, dictators and other evil people are against the quick spread of ideas, while the, you know, good people who look to the future are in favor of it. And yeah, I think he even says that he tries to look to the future, so something like that, or it's the language of the future, so, you know, something along those lines. as the when we start seeing the festival, there's a woman sticking her head out of a window, and then there's a woman down on the street, and they're discussing about the festival briefly, and one I, yeah, the woman who stays at home says that there'll be a lot of thieves at the festival, and the other one responds, there'll be just as many at home, you'll see. And then we get this incredible pan from where she is up, and we see this massive crowd, just really, really great, and in general, some great crowd shots. I read at least one analysis of this movie that said that that was the director. I'm gonna mess this up so bad. William Dieterle? Dieterle. Sorry, I don't speak German. The 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 director, that was his real strength, was crowd shots, and he definitely, I think this might be, excuse me, the only thing I've seen of his, but he definitely does do a great job in this. The many crowd shots in a number of different scenes. The crowd at the festival, the crowd when Quasimodo's being punished, the crowd when Esmeralda is being taken out and they're going to hang her, and then Quasimodo swoops in, and at first they're against the hanging, so they're clearly protesting, and then when he swoops in and gives her sanctuary, they're cheering, and then when they're going to break into Notre Dame to get her out of there to get to safety, that's yeah, another great crowd shot, or series of crowd shots. Great shots of the fun of the festival. You really get a sense of just, yeah, this really, you know, you can understand why this many people would show up. I mean, obviously, it's also, this is not the kind of thing, these are people who wouldn't get to have much fun, just in their day-to-day lives. But still, this does legitimately look like a really fun time. I like the scene where they keep going, discussing if the Earth is round or flat. That does look like a good play. The guy playing Death is into it. And it's a good costume, too, with the bones on it, the skull mask thing, and he's just swinging that scythe. Just, yeah. Charles Laughton's performance just really breaks your heart. It's a good detail that they refused to pay Gringoire for the play, even though, he points out the play was ordered. It wasn't like some kind. You have to pay, isn't and the other guy says, it's not a good time to talk about money. It never is. Why are they after you? What have you done? I'm Romani. That's not your fault. That's an act of God. Again, such a great, it's almost a statement of principle, or if, it's not the only one. You also have the one of my favorite lines is there's that brief exchange where one of the Romani says, "Why can't we come into Paris?" And the response is, "You're foreigners." And the Romani says, "Foreigners? You came yesterday, we come today." And just, yeah, such great anti-xenophobia messages. They're really, yeah, they really couldn't be much clearer that nobody asks to be born into the I hate the word race because it has been thoroughly disproven. Ethnicity. No one is born to, you know, to the ethnicity that they, and the, like, you know, you came yesterday, we come today. Seriously, if you don't already know, look it up. Literally, like, I'm not sure there's any people, like, I guess maybe some, like, let me finish the sentence before I make the exception. There's almost no people, no group of human beings on Earth that live in the exact same place as their ancestors did. We all move around. That's not just like, you know, it's especially rich when you have Americans saying you don't get to come here, when literally, like, the reason America is America rather than, you know, like, it used to be where Native Americans lived, and then it was colonized. So literally, the if you live in America, you you know at some point you came there or your ancestors came there. You were, like, unless you're Native American, you know, your line did not originate in America. It's just that you have settled by now, and you used to be just as much of a foreigner as the people you say, don't get to be there today. Now, let's see. Great scene when, right after praying, Esmeralda is confronted by Frollo. She makes the excellent point: if we could do magic, why would we choose to be persecuted? If you replace do magic with control the world, the line could be spoken by a Jew rather than Romani. Just excellent. And yeah, the Romani really are very frequently in this movie analogous to Jews. Yeah. And great contrast between Esmeralda talking about beauty in nature while Frollo shamelessly looks down her cleavage. There's this very real, you know, what's the word? Like, they're not flirting. He's the one sexualizing her, and she's not talking about something that should make him think about sex. She's talking about the beauty of nature. The and that's where, like, he says you dance in the street and inflame men's hearts with lust, but he's now thinking lustfully of her, and she's not dancing. She's in a church. She's in a church and she's praying. Why is he thinking about sex with her? With the again, this is, he really doesn't. He doesn't really respect any. He thinks that he should be able to get away with doing what he wants. When he finally does admit to the king, I want to say, yes, that he is a murderer. Like, the if he legitimately believed in law and order, what he would do is, like, say, book me, I'm a murderer. He admits to it, he confesses, but he storms off. It's not like the king or I'm sorry, I'm terrible with titles. Archdeacon, was that it? His brother, the man of the cloth, is going to stop him. He knows that if he can get to Esmeralda before the guards catch up to him, he will be able to kill her. And, yeah, if he can't have her, he would rather kill her. It's very uncomfortable watching Quasimodo chase down Esmeralda. And I really, like, the Disney version entirely did away with that. At no point in that does Quasimodo chase Esmeralda, which, as far as I understand, it was in the original book. And I want to say that originally it was that he basically, I've heard at least one version where sorry, that made it sound like an audio play. I've heard of at least one version of this where Quasimodo chases her down because he's going to rape her, and that obviously they can't do that when he's supposed to be one of the good guys in this. So in this one, it doesn't shy away from his appearance, but it doesn't call him a monster. It very specifically says, he clearly has a good heart, but they did leave in the chase, and I don't know. I don't know if it was originally always that Frollo tells Quasimodo to go after her like he does in the, that does make it a lot more sympathetic. He is doing what his master told him. He doesn't really fully understand. We see clearly in the movie he basically has the mind of a child. He's not really like, he doesn't understand that what he's doing is going to be perceived really negatively by her. If he did, it really seems like he would refuse. He would say, "No, I'm not gonna chase a woman. No, sir. You may be you're my master, but I'm not gonna do what you say if you ask me to do something so awful." But it is. I think it might have been. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the Nostalgia Critic who points out that in the Disney version, because Quasimodo never chases down Esmeralda, they still wanted to have. I don't. It really wouldn't feel like the Hunchback of Notre Dame if Quasimodo was never tied to the what's it called? I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called, but yeah, tied down and scorned by the crowd. So yeah, in the Disney version, they make it that the crowd ends up laughing at him, not with him, and then some of the guards tie him down. But yeah, in this, it is because it is punishment. Man, I like the detail that Gringoire is sleeping in the hay. He doesn't just show up out of nowhere. The reason he becomes aware of them of the chase is that I want to say is it Quasimodo who almost steps on him. He's hiding under some hay, Gringoire is, and Quasimodo runs very close to him, which I don't know if he was asleep and it wakes him up, or if it just like he might have already been awake and just like looks to what's going on, But 5 minutes earlier, we're told that he's not going to be paid for the play. So yeah, he sleeps in the hay. It's not. I did not mean for that to rhyme. He has no money, so what else is he going to do? And later, Clopin specifically says they didn't say work or starve. They said starve because you won't work. We won't give you work. We won't let you work. I think, yeah. And Gringoire manages to talk Clopin out of the hanging, and there's some really great black comedy with the hangman so desperate to hang the poet, and when he finally realizes it's just not going to happen, he's like, "Man, he has such a nice neck." Yeah, it's very telling when the poet realizes Esmeralda does not love him. He accepts that they will be friends instead of trying to force her to love him. Excellent dialogue between Gringoire and Clopin about the levels of stealing by poor and rich, and again, very very applicable to when you look at how the powerful, all that the powerful take from those without power. Yeah, and the Frollo and some others are discussing, the prisons are getting overcrowded. One of them says we need to build more prisons, and I think Frollo is the one who responds, it's not more prisons we need, it's more executions. The idea of preventing crime by improving conditions for the poor never even enters their minds. And Frollo does not, help get Quasimodo down because he doesn't want to be seen near him when he's being mocked. Very sweet when Esmeralda gives him water, and just really, like, it doesn't just break your heart, it stabs you in the heart and then twists the blade, that he doesn't feel like he deserves her giving him water, so he keeps pulling away. As the two workers talk about Quasimodo now being a different person because of Esmeralda, we get our first look at the pot for melting lead. Nice bit of, like, setup for the later payoff. Excuse me, foreshadowing kind of thing. And Frollo blames Esmeralda for his lust. Again, this idea of, as if the woman herself is, intentionally doing, obviously there are things women can do that will, get us straight men to lust after them, but that isn't the same thing as, it's wrong to believe that if a man feels lust for a woman, that the woman intentionally did that, and again, that's something that becomes very clear when you see him lusting after her in church. And Phoebus tells Esmeralda that he doesn't know if he'll love her tomorrow. And, we realize every major character... Sorry. Let me rephrase that slightly. The major characters involved in... I mean, it's not really a love triangle, it's like a love square, right? All of them feel yeah, is in love with another character who isn't in love with them. Even Esmeralda is in love with someone who isn't in love with her, in the case of Phoebus. Which also helps to sort of, it's not... Unrequited love is not something that only straight men feel for only straight women. It's, obviously this, 1939, if I recall, I'm not sure, if I recall, it was literally illegal to even mention homosexuality. So obviously, it's only going to be straight and cis relationships. But yeah, both, both men and women feel. Frollo confesses the murder to his brother, but is certain that the devil made him do it. He refuses to take responsibility for it. But again, Frollo claims to be in favor of justice, and believe in law and order. But when he kills someone, he finds excuses for why it wasn't really his fault, and thus he shouldn't be punished. And he confesses to his brother, yes, but only because he thinks that his brother is going to help him. And his brother points out, well, from what you're saying, clearly, my responsibility is to protect the Romani girl, not you. And let's see, yeah, so the idea that someone is not themselves to blame for what they've done, and they themselves shouldn't face punishment for it, never enters his mind when it comes to anybody else being punished. Something that we actually, the Disney version takes that one step further by telling us that the reason Phoebus was brought back from the war is that he, the guy he's replacing wasn't good enough. He didn't live up to Frollo's expectations, and we realize what we're hearing is him being tortured. So even someone who helped Frollo, we don't know exactly what happened, but I mean, based on later events of the movie, it seems like that guy probably also thought that Frollo was going too far in his hatred of Romani, and yeah, because of that, he has him tortured and brings in somebody else to do it. But when it comes to himself, when he does some of the most awful things that anyone can do, he murdered a man in cold blood. He didn't kill Phoebus in self-defense. He killed him so that nobody else would have Esmeralda. You know, so when he's the one doing it, he's certain that it must be somebody else's fault. He doesn't take responsibility, for his own feelings and for acting on his own feelings, because he says, I wouldn't have those feelings if not for Esmeralda. But you don't get to, he it's your own responsibility to be in charge of your feelings. It's not like she goaded him into it or tricked him or something, you know. And would he accept that excuse if somebody else, let's say that it was a fellow Romani who did it, then he wouldn't be like, oh, you too were, for you it was witchcraft too. And we see on Frollo's orders the printing press, an important tool for truth, is destroyed because Frollo does not want, and he realizes that if the excuse me the it might lead to the excuse me it might lead to the Esmeralda not being punished. The trial scene is very compelling. The human witnesses are ignored because they prove her innocence, but they do listen to the goat because it appears to them to prove witchcraft. And Gringoire, as he's being dragged out, points out, you won't listen to human beings who would exonerate her, but you do listen to the goat. It is a terrible day when a goat decides the fate of a person, or something like that. And the king realizes that she only confessed because of torture, and he gives her another chance to prove the and ultimately it is the it doesn't actually, you know she isn't freed because of that. At the end of the day, the thing with which dagger will she reach for, that's really one of the superstitions that the opening text mentions, that holds people back. What does save her is words and ideas. The poet knows her and knows that it's wrong. So yeah. and Esmeralda is being led to where she will be hanged, and the crowd are clearly on her side, to the point where the guards have to stand in their way and even whip some of them to get them to move, to let them through, which they of course do without hesitation. As they're preparing to hang her, Gringoire wants to go interfere, but Clopin knows that would be a bad idea and holds him back. And the crowd is ecstatic when Quasimodo manages to get her away. Even when Quasimodo has saved her from being executed, he feels like he's not worthy of being near her. Again, it's very telling. Frollo keeps, going near her despite despite that she clearly does not want him to. But Quasimodo, he really has to be convinced that, he assumes that she doesn't want him there, and it's only because she goes and gets him back that, yeah. I want to briefly say I saw someone criticize the movie for, the way that the scene where Phoebus is killed, the way that was filmed and edited. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I think there may have been, like, I mean, basically it was murder by stabbing. I think. Well, I mean, we do see Clopin do it to that guy who won't pay later. I think there was at the very least a limitation on how many of those you could show in a movie back then, and maybe they went with the I don't know. I don't think it's a problem for the movie. We're told very soon after. I don't know. Is the idea supposed to be that at first we, the audience, too, should think that she might have been the one to do it? I'm not sure. I'm not going to claim that it's easy to tell that but we are told not long after. So yeah. When Quasimodo is playing the bells for Esmeralda, he's almost like a child playing. And we see the nobles sign the petition to remove sanctuary. Even the church is literally not holy to these people. They refuse to be affected by the will of the people. Which again, Frollo is not the only person, and he appears to not even be the one in charge of this idea, but he is one of the people who signs it. So again, the Nazis do not listen to the will of the people, and that is true. It's a very it's sadly a frequent misconception that Hitler won the vote. He got I forget, was it he received a certain amount of votes, and because of that, the other elected officials were like, well, we can't ignore him because clearly a lot of people do believe in him, and they agreed to temporarily let him be in charge, having no idea that he would just abolish democracy in Germany. They thought that it would be this temporary thing, but he just kicked them out and put guards in front of the doors. He did not win fair and square. He barely, he didn't win. Period. He got a certain amount of votes, and because of that, they felt that they couldn't ignore him. But he was not elected into office in a proper democratic election. I don't know for sure if they knew that when. Well, yeah, I mean the director was German. If I understand correctly, He was German, but he went to America before the year 1939 and helped make this. So he might have heard the, yeah, I don't know. And Gringoire is certain that his writing will affect the king, while Clopin is certain that it will take violence to save Esmeralda. The poet is more clever than I thought. His writing can even affect the opinion of a king, somewhat like how Victor Hugo managed to, get the powers that be to restore Notre Dame with his original writing. Quasimodo sees the people trying to break into the church. He mistakes them for people who want Esmeralda dead, and we again see the cauldron for hot lead, and not long after, he, pours it on them. Some more great crowd shots, great climax, very dramatic. She's free, we've won, the king has pardoned her. And Clopin dies realizing the day was saved by ideas, not violence. The violence of the Nazis was not the way forward, but rather ideas of humanity's worth. The reason that Esmeralda lives in this version is that the king is convinced by, empathy and words that Esmeralda should not be killed. And yeah, that it is almost like after the events of the movie, he goes to print, I guess propaganda posters or something, for the for America and various for the forces who fought against the Nazis. I realized that the original story ended tragically, but given the time that this movie came out, as the Nazis were becoming a very real threat to other countries, it makes perfect sense to make, basically, make Frollo basically a Nazi, not only have him defeated, but also have, Gringoire and Esmeralda have a happy ending after his defeat, to give hope to people in the fight against the Nazis. Not only will we stop them, we will be happy again, because, war is something that really crushes your spirit. So it's important to do, to try to keep the spirits high, basically. Now, the movie is an hour and 56 minutes long without end credits, and 57 long with them. This is one of the, this was back when a lot of the, the credits were very short. It's very interesting to watch this, not long after watching much more recent movies, some of which have, 10 minutes worth of credits. Now, that brings us to the second section. Notes taken before watching. Now, usually I would open the section mentioning what else I've seen of the work of the starring actors and crew. I really don't know very many other films from this time period, so I don't really, I know, excuse me, I know the name of Charles, names like Charles Lawton, Maureen O'Hara, and yeah, but I'm not sure I've seen any other movie that they're in. But I love this, and I love the 1938 movie, The Adventures of Robin Hood. I I'm also mostly unfamiliar with the work of Victor Hugo. I have watched one version of Les Miserables, the one from 1978 with Anthony Perkins. Now, let's see. So yeah, I honestly, unironically love this movie and almost everything about it. But it is kind of silly that while the message of the movie is that Romani people are human beings, they still cast a white actor as Esmeralda. But yeah, at the time, they probably couldn't imagine casting a Romani actor in a leading role, you know, Romani or any, any other, is it any or any other POC at all, figuring people wouldn't watch. I'd like to think that they were wrong about that, but I honestly don't know. And it is one of those things where you have to weigh, like, hypothetically, let's say they did make the movie with a Romani actress and people didn't go watch it. Ultimately, the message is really extremely important, even if they didn't cast an actual Romani. But and then the Disney version, I don't know. I think, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that Demi Moore isn't Romani. I'm very sorry if I'm mistaken about that, but I guess just, yeah. But I'm actually, have they made a version of it since the Disney one? I'm not sure they have, but I hope that in the future they would cast Romani. Some of the other Romani characters, at least, I don't know if the actors are for sure Romani, but they certainly look like Romani. The guy on the what's it called, coach, who says, "Foreigners, you came yesterday, we came today," definitely looks Romani. I realize not everyone loves that Quasimodo himself has such a small role in this, since today we expect him to be the lead, even though, as far as I understand, it is accurate to the novel. But honestly, I think if he really was the lead, his pain would make the movie unbearable, considering how intense his pain is for a substantial chunk of his screen time. Like, there's really most of the time when you see him, there's a lot of pain there. But that is something I really, that's also a strength of the Disney version that Lindsay Ellis points to. They actually made him the protagonist. He's the hero of his own story. In that, when you know, at I forget if, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I can imagine that maybe he was similar to like a Frankenstein monster or something in like played as something that the audience should be afraid of. In the what's the word? In the original, in the movie that came out before this, in the silent movie where they played it, sorry, both there and in the original novel, as far as I understand, which, again, like, I can understand wanting him to have a bigger role than in this, like he does in the Disney version, but I do think I really love about this that it really doesn't, the movie itself doesn't really judge him for his appearance, and it in fact shows that people judging him for his appearance has really made him, clearly he has a good heart, and he's very determined. He's very willing to sacrifice himself, put himself in danger to protect people he cares about. But the his appearance doesn't make him a monster. Other people treating him badly has made him less than what he could be, but still not a monster. And the yeah, it really, like, there are a few times where he mistakenly does the wrong thing. Yeah, yeah, few times where he does the wrong thing thinking that it's the right thing. You know, clearly, you know, I already mentioned him chasing down Esmeralda, and you know, when he rings the bells for her, it's clear to the audience that it's too loud for her, but he's happy and excited, so he's playing them, and he doesn't stop to think, but it's too loud for her because she's not as, you know, he's nearly deaf because of the bells, but she, you know, but he's not doing it on purpose. He never intentionally, you know, the closest thing, yeah, I get, you know, intentionally he hurts Frollo, but that's because Frollo comes up there specifically to kill, and you know, even attacks the, you know, he even attacks Quasimodo himself, so it's partially self-defense, and he goes after the knife after, you know, Quasimodo basically manages to get him to drop the knife, and with the knife on the floor, Quasimodo doesn't go for it, but Frollo does, and when he does, that's when Quasimodo kills him. He, you know, he could easily have gone, he could have tried to kill him before he went for the knife, but he gives him a chance to surrender. You know, so you know, that's the only time that he, sorry, and obviously the climax, he attacks the people coming into the church, but in both cases he's doing it to protect Esmeralda. In part, he's, you know, he's doing it mistaken, you know, it's because of a misunderstanding, but he doesn't intentionally, you know, if he, when he, the few times he intentionally hurts people, he's doing it because he thinks that they're going to brutally kill someone innocent, and the, you know, yeah, it's a, it's in defense of someone innocent who can't protect herself. So, you know, it's very clear from the movie that Quasimodo himself does not deserve to be treated badly. He's treated badly because people can't see, excuse me, see past his appearance. Excuse me. Just like with the Romani, you know, it's a, the movie has a lot of empathy for these very powerless people. You know, I'm not sure that the movie ever really tries to make us laugh at. I don't know. I mean, I guess there are times where we're meant to laugh at Gringoire, but I'm not sure we're ever. Yeah, and some of the time that is from, like, you know, the like when, I think we're supposed to laugh when the chair, you know, collapses under him, when he's supposed to be, you know, he's trying to steal from the thing, you know, the dummy, but the, yeah, you know, we're not supposed to laugh at the pain of Quasimodo or the Romani. I really appreciate that the bad guys in this movie are immediately established as not wanting to grant rights to minorities who need them. In this case, the Romani, but yeah, you know, yeah, the real life analog at the time was the Jews, and even if that wasn't enough, you know, they later seemed to take away other people's rights and stand in the way of progress, such as destroying the printing press, refusing to listen to Quasimodo in court, not even respecting sanctuary. It really mirrors Nazi Germany brilliantly, whilst still feeling like something that could be true of France back then, rather than just awkwardly inserting Nazis to make the movie seem more poignant, which is, you know, yeah, there are movies that have Nazis where really doesn't make sense. I I really appreciate that the people in the movie treat Esmeralda badly are villains, while the heroes accept she'll only be a friend even though they love her. Because if you truly love someone, you won't force them to love you back. I really appreciate that the movie has sympathy for Esmeralda, rather than just saying that since she is pretty, she must want all the men to fall for her. After all, she herself falls for Phoebus. So it's not just this thing of, and she doesn't take advantage of the men that love her. I can see how some people might be confused as to how Quasimodo even knew that Esmeralda needed help, such as when he comes to court. The way I see it, someone working in the church probably keeps him up on stuff like that, since it's something he would want to know about. Esmeralda might be the first person he's fallen in love with, so one of the priests that has empathy for him, it's, if at least one, sorry, of the priests has empathy for him, it makes sense that, he would run to him and say, you'll have to stop them, they're about to execute her. And we know that they go up there to try to stop him from ringing the bells really late, so they do expect that they will be able to communicate with him in a way that he understands. Now, the opening prologue, I think I read this in the trivia. Apparently, the opening prologue tells, or goofs, I guess, tells that it was King Louis IX, when it would actually make more sense for it to be King Louis XI. Children, please, if you don't learn Roman numerals, you'll misspell prologues of classic movies. I tried. So I rewatched. I really don't need much of an excuse to, but I rewatched Phalus's reviews of the animated movies about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and yeah, I think he made. I think there are 4, and they're all a lot of. Yeah, it's actually it is kind of interesting to rewatch them with Lindsay Ellis's, the case. Yeah, the case for Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame fresh in your mind, so you know and knowing what's in this movie that is, so you can piece together, because some of those animated ones came out before the Disney one, so they took some inspiration from. Yeah, see, I don't know if they took inspiration from this movie, or it's just stuff that's in this movie that was also in the original, so they got it from the original. But but let's see. And let's see. Yeah, so there's at least one of the ones that you know, Phalus reviews, and it's one that doesn't have the poet, but Phoebus does try to spread a petition to save Esmeralda's life, and Phalus doesn't like that. I don't know if he's familiar with, but it does make a lot of sense. It does make much more sense for it to be the poet than Phoebus, but and as far as I could tell from Phalos' review, it doesn't look like that version of the story makes a big deal out of the printing press, which is, in that case, it does seem like the petition kind of comes out of nowhere, where in this, like, the printing press comes up several times, and the poet is always, like, he basically can't help, but he's always writing something or talking about some piece of art or something, to like when he talks about Phoebus, or sorry, I guess that's not art, that's mythology, sorry, whatever, the to he tells Esmeralda, he welcomes the arrival of Phoebus, or something along those lines. And excuse me. Excuse me. I'm just really quickly. There we go. deal with that later. There we go. Now, let's see. So but yeah, I think the people making that animated one, they wanted to have that bit in there, and they didn't think about if it would make a lot of sense when Phoebus isn't a poet and the printing press isn't really much of a, yeah. There's a video on YouTube called Hunchback of Notre Dame 1939 Tribute. It's like 5.5 minutes, very nicely done. And there are several trailers. Let's see. Yeah, I think, yeah, the 1 minute 54-second one, I think is the original. I really appreciate it keeps Quasimodo's face hidden. Basically, I I would like to think that they also didn't reveal it on like a poster or anything. Basically, you didn't know what Quasimodo's face looked like until you watched the movie, and then, I mean, I guess they just had faith in the 1938-39 movie-going audience that by the end of the movie, they would accept Quasimodo is a good guy. I was wrong to judge him. Probably back then people judged him for his appearance, and that's also something the Disney version does quite a good job of. When we see his face, he's immediately humanized. The he's trying to get this little bird to learn how to fly. He's being very caring, and the yeah. And there's a 1 minute 56 second fan trailer which uses Hellfire. Oh, sorry. That's the one swear. I might say that word more than once, but other than that, no swearing in this. And there's a 1 minute 43-second trailer that makes the Disney version look like this 1939 one. Nicely done. And yeah, I watched Disney Semper on Hunchback of Notre Dame 1 and 2. Pretty good videos. And let's see. 10 dark secrets in the Hunchback of Notre Dame Disney doesn't want you to know. And it's kind of clickbaity of a title, but it's not. It's a fine video, if I recall. Guillermo del Toro on the Hunchback of Notre Dame, 2 minutes, and it's apparently his favorite version of the story because of who plays Quasimodo, and it is, like, it's really not surprising that Guillermo del Toro loves and would especially be, compelled by Quasimodo, And I know Lindsay Ellis no longer particularly is very happy about her nostalgia chic videos, but I did rewatch the top 10 worst Disney sequels, where she talks about Hunchback of Notre Dame 2. Yeah, and the DVD comes with a handful of posters. They're quite good, and let's see. 1 minute 50-second trailer, and apparently it's the same as the 1 minute 56-second one. Yeah, just the 6 extra seconds. But I might just be like this trailer has been approved for all audiences. I don't remember. Let's see. And that brings us fourth and final section. Critics cites IMDb and Wikipedia. And I am going to just go through the ones I specifically noted to. Huh. What's that? Why is it that? Okay. Whatever. Yeah, it seems to be working fine. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, this is a user review from Rotten Tomatoes. Best movie of all time, a tearjerker from beginning to end, and an eloquent defense of human dignity. Very well put. Yes. And and there. Now I am going to, yeah, that brings us to IMDb, and I'm just gonna, as usual, I'm gonna read aloud the taglines. Impact, power, pathos, drama. Drama unparalleled, spectacle beyond belief. Impact, power, fire, pathos, drama. And, that was apparently the original print ad, and it does, the parenthesis explaining that also make sure to make clear all caps. That wasn't just the person submitting that as a, no, it was all caps on the, print ad. Big beyond words, wondrous beyond belief, magnificent beyond compare. And that's apparently the title lobby card. And I think, yeah, I'm gonna move on to, let's see. So, let's The scene in which Quasimodo rings the cathedral bells for Esmeralda was shot the day World War II began in Europe. The director and star were so overwhelmed, the scene took on a new meaning, with Charles Laughton ringing the bells frantically, and William Dieterle forgetting to yell cut. Finally, the actor just stopped ringing when he became too tired to continue. Later, Laughton said, "I couldn't think of Esmeralda in that scene at all. I could only think of the poor people out there going in to fight that bloody, bloody war, to arouse the world, to stop that terrible butchery. Awake, awake. That's what I felt when I was ringing the bells." At a cost of $1.8 million, this was one of the most expensive films ever made by RKO Pictures. The Notre Dame replica alone cost $250,000. That really is, but it's worth it, because the let's see, 1939. So I guess it's 81 years old now, and I mean, I guess there are people that I wouldn't recommend it to. There are people that I know if I recommended it to them, they would never listen to my movie recommendations again. But I can put this on pretty much any time and be completely entranced. And there are movies that isn't, excuse me, where that isn't the case, despite, some, not every expensive movie is, you know, it doesn't always really grab you the way that, now, RKO specifically wanted to outdo the 1923 silent version of the story, so a vigorous campaign that spared no expense was undertaken. Much attention was given to advanced publicity. No pictures of Charles Laughton in full Quasimodo makeup and costume were allowed to be seen, so that a first-time viewing would be a guaranteed shock. Also, the studio hired, at Laughton's request, leading makeup artist Perk Westmore to supervise makeup. Unfortunately, Westmore and Laughton had heated quarrels before a final image for Quasimodo was agreed upon. To convincingly play a character deafened by the ringing of the cathedral bells, Charles Laughton had his ears plugged with wax so he couldn't react to any unexpected sounds. That's very clever, and as someone who sometimes has trouble with hearing, that is very uncomfortable. So that was quite yeah. Actors Leonard Nimoy, Ron Perlman, and Rufus Sewell have all said that seeing Charles Laughton's performance in this film when they were children inspired them to pursue acting. That really is, like, yeah. Yeah. To turn Charles Laughton into the deformed bell ringer. Sorry, is that a... I'm sorry, I forget if that's a... if that term is still considered, or if it's considered offensive now. Sorry. Perk Westmore covered half his face with sponge rubber, adding a protruding eyeball lower than the average. Laughton's other eye was covered with a milky contact lens. The hump consisted of an aluminum framework stuffed with 4 pounds of foam rubber, and the rest of Laughton's torso was padded with rubber to create a sense of the muscles developed from pulling on the bellboat. Very nicely done. And, you know, today they would be able to do, obviously, if you look, you'll notice that the other eye never blinks, and the what's it called, the pupil never moves. And I think, is it maybe also that when he sits down, crap, I forget, but I noted it at one point that it's more convincing when he's standing, when he's sitting, or maybe it's the other way around. RKO's original trailer shows Charles Laughton almost entirely from the back, except for a rapid, blurred shot of his face when he is revealed to the crowd at the Feast of Fools. The scene where Quasimodo talks to Esmeralda, "I'm not a man and I'm not a beast," is re-edited so the viewer can only see Maureen O'Hara's face and the back of Laughton's head. Captions at the end read, "See the storming of Notre Dame, see the face of the Hunchback." The first time in any incarnation of the story where Esmeralda is actually Romani. In previous works, she was a white woman raised by Romani, and as Lindsay Ellis points out, that is, wow, that really, yeah. So the that's supposed to reassure the white audience. You don't have to have sympathy for Romani. Don't worry. It's just, yeah, that's really messed up. King Louis XI, the monarch depicted in the film, is historically credited with unifying France under royal authority as he managed to defeat France's semi-independent feudal lords and to annex most of Burgundy and the entire Picardy. Is that what Captain Picard is named after? Anyway, to the Kingdom of France due to achieving victory in part through diplomacy and intrigue. He has been nicknamed as Louis the Prudent, Louis the Cunning, and Louis the Universal Spider. Okay, was that last one trolling? Because sometimes people sneak information onto IMDb that is not accurate. I don't know. Maybe spider means some other... I don't know. I think we should have more Spider Kings. There's terrible underrepresentation of spiders. Yeah. And IMDb quotes. Quasimodo the Bellringer. Half laughing, half weeping. I'm about as shapeless as the man in the moon. Now, let's see. Yeah, so I think the... I guess this is from Wikipedia. Yeah. Screenwriter Sonia Levian, I'm going to go with, who was entrusted to translate Hugo's novel into this film, made the story relevant to the events of the time the film was made. She made the obvious parallel between Paris' persecution of the Romani and Germany's treatment of the Jews prior to World War II. Now, so this... Oh, yeah, this is still... This is this is an external review. There are also times when it is a real oddity. The plot seems to move in odd staccato jumps. One is never sure what subplot each scene is going to take up when it opens, and whatever else that may be happening, it is going to temporarily put aside. Characters often behave very differently depending on the dictates of the subplot of the moment, and that is, yeah. It works beautifully as a film. The one thing one notices about William de Terle is his handling of crowds. No directors other than Sergei Eisenstein and Fritz Lang ever used crowds to such a group mime effect. De Terle whips the crowds from one side of the screen to the other. They are all naked forces of expression, and the effect as giant masses collide on screen is stunning. In one sensationally beautiful shot, the camera hangs near the very apex of the cathedral, looking down on the crowd as Charles Laughton holds Maureen O'Hara's unconscious body up before them. The image is so stark and vivid, it hangs there like a primal scream. In shots like, the design of the cathedral bell tower is magnificent, even if the spectacle seems to be crying out for color. In shots like the one where Charles Laughton rests beside a gargoyle and puts his head in his hands and cries, the very cathedral itself seems to be echoing his pain. And this is another external review. Sorry, that is review that is linked to by IMDb as an external review. Aside from Lawton's excellent performance, the film's strongest asset for me is the depiction of the class divide in 15th century France. Very true. It's sure it affects the pacing a bit, and I'm not sure the King of Beggars is a necessary character, hence my preference for the Disney version that removed most of that, and Quasimodo ends up getting a bit lost in the shuffle. There seems to be one person too many infatuated with Esmeralda for my liking. It feels a tad cluttered, but it's interesting material nonetheless. Also, I want to briefly mention I've seen some criticize that Frollo is not a man of the church, and because of it, it's incredibly important. It's a big part of the point of the original story that it is a man of the church who feels such lust. Someone who has a what's it called, a vow of abstinence. I think it's called vow of abstinence. Sorry, got the word there for a second. And let's see. Sorry, that was a little vague. Yes, that was that. I was trying to make an Age of Ultron reference there. Let me think. Yeah. They would not have been able to make the movie, like hypothetically, if they had somehow, if they had managed to make a movie back then. I think even in production they would have had problems. But if they somehow managed to make a movie in which a priest was going mad with lust, they would not have been allowed to put it in American theaters. Plain and simple. So it's not, they had to. And I really do think that there are a lot of other compelling things about the movie that make it worth changing that. But I forget, I think Lindsay Ellis went into that in some of the versions it actually is a man of the, or wait, or was that Phaelus? Sorry. Let's see. And this is from yet another external review. Finally, there is the most important king of all, the King of Fools. I have not yet said much about the eponymous character, but Quasimodo is the film's real hero, and he is treated with great compassion in the story. Fitted with a large prosthetic hump and with wax placed in his ears to simulate his deafness, Charles Laughton brings much pathos to the role of Quasimodo. Let's see. She is Esmeralda Maureen O'Hara, and the problems she causes are largely no fault of her own. It's simply down to her being so darn beautiful. This was the Hollywood debut of one of the most fiery stars of the Golden Age, and her no-nonsense attitude endeared her to countless fans as it was born from the definite humanity that she brought out in this, one of her defining roles. And the man responsible for taking her to Hollywood, the titular Hunchback himself, Charles Laughton, who played Quasimodo in a performance that may have been a gift to impressionists to this day, but was another example in finding the sympathy. The pity with the disadvantage that O'Hara was able to divine in her reading. Let's see. We are geared to expect Quasimodo to be the monster of the story. Indeed, in the sequence where he attempts to kidnap Esmeralda, he's basically a scary villain, but it doesn't stay like that. Yeah, this is one of the people who comment on how unclear Phoebus's death is, but yeah, but this person seems to not regard it as a negative. Yeah, they took it as Phoebus raping Esmeralda, who then killed him as in self-defense. And I think and that is all of the yeah, that was everything that I had noted to make sure to say. It's not as hot as it has been recently, but I think it is still. I'm going to end the video at this point. Let me think if there's anything left that I really badly want to make sure to say. Talked about Quasimodo, Phoebus, War. Lindsay Ellis says that in this movie, basically, there's always sympathy for, like, there are times where the Disney version doesn't seem to, you know, the Disney version wants to have, full empathy for the Romani, but there are times where it doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't completely get it right, and she uses as example the scene in I'm sorry, it's called the Court of Miracles, and the I don't know, I mean, I feel like this one also gets a few things, there are a few things where it makes them look very, they, like when Clopin stabs that one guy for not paying what's it called? What did they say? Pay his share or something? I forget, but and yeah, that is kind of yeah, but by and large, the it doesn't really treat them as if there's something like the it says that they some of the things that people who don't like Romani say is that they live where it's dirty, they steal, and they you know sorry, there's I feel like there's one more stereotype If I can't remember it, I'll just move on. Maybe the beliefs that that their beliefs and culture are different, and in this they confront that. She, Esmeralda says very directly, and you can tell she's. I mean, I'm not. Esmeralda really never does lie in the movie, but you know, yeah, you can tell from looking at her, she's telling the truth. She doesn't look. Frollo lies, and you can very clearly tell, when he's saying something that, okay, he doesn't actually believe it. He knows that that's not the truth. But she says, we only steal because we're hungry. And let's see, then there's there's the thing about they live in dirty places. Excuse me. They don't have a they don't have a place to live that isn't dirty. They're forced to live in the Court of Miracles. And let's see, right, culture and beliefs and such. There's sadly a long history of. No, never mind, not going there. There are those that would think less of Esmeralda for not being Christian, but the moment that she has Christianity explained to her, she has no problem, believing and, the what's the word? Like she is happy to pray to God if that might help her people. And we even have we have those other people praying and praying for very superficial things. And she says, I just want my people to be free. And yeah, so it doesn't just say, Romani are, human beings and we should treat them well. And then, like it acknowledges that there are things that people focus on. It's if you don't acknowledge and confront those things, I really it's one of those things where it can seem like, oh, you're just feeding the trolls, because the people who say we shouldn't trust Romani because they live where it's dirty, they don't care. They just want, you know, the obvious thing. Like if you hear that someone lives in a place that's dirty, you shouldn't think, well, I don't want anything. Well, in that case, they shouldn't be allowed. No, the logical thing is to say, well, how could we help them to live in a place that isn't dirty? It's not, nobody chooses to live in dirt. You know. Anyway, the yeah. So the let's see. By confronting those stereotypes, the movie makes, like there might have been a number of people in 1939 watching it who had those, preconceptions about Romani and, about Jews. And the movie, straight up says, well, the reason, they steal because they're hungry. Were they live in worse places than the rest of us because they were forced to, and they aren't trying to destroy our culture. They have a different culture, but they're not trying to destroy ours. And that really is, like, I would be interested in seeing, like, if someone did, I don't know, I guess, I don't know if they did stuff like that, but like, if someone did, like, an opinion poll, and, you know, for example, asked, do you think America should fight Nazi Germany if it becomes necessary? Do you think Romani are as worthy of respect and dignity as, people who aren't Romani? Do you think that Jews are as discerning. You know, these things. Ask that before the movie came out, and ask it after a lot of people. Like, yeah, hand out those right after people watch the movie. Like, as they're leaving the theater, you know, say, please fill this out, and you know, mail it. The postage has already been paid for. Just please, we want to know about this, and publish the answers in a respected paper or something, because I can imagine that it did really change people's minds, because unfortunately, if you speak to the lizard brain, which is what a lot of, you know, xenophobia and stuff like that typically is, trying to go for the lizard brain. You know, it doesn't, it usually isn't very logical. When you stop to really think about it, it's very rarely particularly logical. And that's why when you fight it with logic like this movie does, that can be extremely effective. You know, yeah. I guess in closing, excuse me, I'll just briefly talk about watching the two of them. You know, oh, sorry, I didn't say. It was yesterday that I watched the, let's see, The Adventures of Robin Hood and the Disney version of this. And Darkman I watched Monday. But, so yeah, watching the Disney version and this version so close to each other, you know, obviously it makes it very easy for me to compare. You know, the Disney version moves around some of the scenes a lot. Like in this, you know, Gringoire stumbles upon the Court of Miracles very early on, completely by accident. Where in the Disney version, it's a good chunk into the film. It's, yeah, it's one of the last things that happens in the film is the you know, finding the Court of Miracles, and it's both Phoebus and Quasimodo, and they have to look for it. You know, they don't stumble into it just by, you know, and I mean, in both cases, it, you know, part of it is that a bunch of guards storm in, and let me think, is that where Esmeralda? No, no, Esmeralda's arrested when the, but I think they, I'm pretty sure that some guards came in this one as well. And that's the thing, yeah, in the Disney one, basically that scene culminates in every, you know, everyone there being taken prisoner, being put in jail. And in this one, it, that isn't the case. And it's, I'm not sure there's that much that I think the Disney one did better than this. I think there are some things that are more like, I I don't know that I would show this to a child, but the Disney one, you know, yeah, you could watch that as, you know, as a child. I did. I'm not gonna say and I came out all right, because that's really, excuse me, that's opening door. Let's see, but I do think that it works very well in that movie. And let's see, yeah, so, you know, and the Disney movie basically goes directly from the, you know, the King of Fools directly to the, you know, the punishment. And I do think, you know, it is a bit jarring, but it, I don't think that it would have been a good idea for them to include. Again, that movie definitely made some mistakes, and I, instead of me, you know, Lindsay Ellis does a really great job of going over them, but I do think it would have been a huge mistake for them to actually have Quasimodo, you know, chase down Esmeralda, no matter the reason, no matter who tells them to do it or anything. Let's see. But yeah, I think the, you know, that movie does some really, you know, like Lindsay Ellis points out, this is one of the movies that the Disney one takes the most inspiration from. And one of the things is that, sorry, what's it called? Wires crossed, whatever. Given that, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the differences. In this one, we're told that Quasimodo was a foundling, where in the Disney one, we see, the Romani sneaking into Paris and, and Frollo very directly hunting them. In this, Frollo says, "I have been hunting I am hunting the Romani, and I intend to get rid of them." Where in the Disney one, we literally immediately, we see the what's it called? We see the we see these Romani, and we immediately have sympathy for them because they're not doing, we don't see them do something wrong. We're just seeing they just want shelter, clearly. And in come these brutal guards who put them in chains, and Frollo, who immediately looks just really intense and threatening and scary, And let's see, but yeah, the first time, we see Frollo with, Quasimodo's baby, but it's not that, oh, he's a foundling. No, Frollo killed, you can make an argument, killed Quasimodo's mother. You can make an argument that, oh, he didn't mean to kill her, he just, he knocked her away, and she happened to, well, he didn't, he showed absolutely no remorse for it. And what he did, of course, that could lead to her death. It wasn't a for sure thing, but he, if he didn't want her to die, there are other ways he could have approached it. Now, let's see. And I guess that might be about it. Yeah, and I briefly wanted to say, ultimately, Disney's Frollo gets himself killed. He doesn't. It's not that Quasimodo picks him up and throws him off but you know, again, if they wanted to make a movie that they could look parents in the eye and say, yes, you can take your 7-year-old to this film. And there are definitely some things in there that's like, sure, the 7-year-old should be seen, but they could not have the hero throwing the villain off just like that. Isn't that a thing? It's been a while since I watched very many of the Disney animated ones, but I feel like it's a thing that it's the Disney villains get killed because they basically expose themselves to danger because they're so adamant to kill the hero. And as they expose themselves, if they weren't so dead set on killing the hero, then they wouldn't be, then they would have realized, oh, the thing I'm standing on is collapsing. But I do really love, at the start of that movie, the start of the Disney one, Frollo asks, what am I to do, to save my eternal soul? Raise the child as your own, and basically the whole movie is him, the Frollo fighting for his soul. That's also what the song, his villain song, is about, which is one of the best villain songs. And yeah, the he it's right on the tip of my tongue, but it's not acid, so I don't have to spit it out. Yeah, it's just, I know it. It's any second now. Yes, the whole Disney movie is about Frollo fighting for his soul, and that's the only reason he agrees to take care of Quasimodo. And there at the end, when he's about to kill Esmeralda and Quasimodo, for no good reason, yeah, as he's about to do that, the thing he was standing on starts to collapse. The yeah, it is a gargoyle, isn't it? It's the although it's a horizontal gargoyle. Aren't they all vertical? No, wait, no, sorry, right. It's because it's one of the ones that spits out the yeah. Anyway, he it starts to fall and he grabs onto it, and then it's like the eyes light up and the mouth moves, and it's like he's being condemned to the place with the fire and brimstone. Let's go with that so I don't have to swear. Because I'm not in Sunday school right now. Yes, so I thought that worked really well. As a, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that works really well in the Disney one as well. I'm probably not going to do a video on that. I really am not that much. I haven't watched anywhere near enough animated stuff to be able to do a good review of something, of an animated film or TV show. I guess that is pretty much it. Yeah, just briefly I want to say about the Disney one, when he stands on the gargoyle and it starts to snap off, we had seen that he used the sword to chop into one of them, and then it starts to fall off. Or does it only start to fall off after someone has been standing on it? Also, I forget. But he chops into a few of them. The one he stands on, I'm almost certain no sword chopped into. I don't know if that was like last minute they decided, oh no, it's actually better if he's standing to their right instead of to their left, because the one to their left had been chopped into, and I don't think anybody had stood on it, so that would have made sense. But then maybe they changed, first, that happens. I don't know. I guess you could maybe also say, well, God really wants him dead, so he's gonna use any kind of means to. But yeah, I guess that is pretty much. I like that in the Disney one, like a lot of there are a few of the guards that have personality and real faces, but a bunch of them, like from around here to the top of their head, it's just covered by this metal helmet thing, and they look very inhuman. It kind of reminds me of like RoboCop with the little black visor thing, covering the eyes. I thought that was a very smart decision, because it's important that we don't think of them as individuals, but more like just like they're essentially extensions of the iron clutches of Frollo. That is basically it. They're really not. It's very important that we don't really see them as individuals. And after all, if they did not want to, if they didn't want to do these awful, brutal things, I don't know. I don't know. It's possible that that it would be difficult for some of them to get a different job, but at the end of the day, it is still like, how far are you willing to go to eat? If the only way you can eat is to brutalize defenseless people who've done nothing wrong, some people would choose to starve. Instead, I'm not passing judgment in this video. I'm just saying I think it was the right decision for the Disney movie to do that, because it really is not. We're not supposed to empathize with the guards, and it's a good visual signifier. They look, their heads look a lot less human than Quasimodo's. So that's a good kind of, yeah. There's a lot more humanity in his eyes than there is in their visor. And I guess that is pretty much. Real quick, see if there's some. if I'm reminded of something by the, let's see, yeah, I really appreciate that, you know, yes, sorry, real quick. The movie was made in an era of gothic horror masterpieces like Frankenstein and Dracula. I really appreciate that it doesn't feel like, it has the gothic horror for sure, but that Quasimodo, yeah, that Quasimodo is not a movie monster in this the way he was in. I can completely understand why they did make him that in the silent one. I don't think a silent movie audience. Honestly, I don't think they were ready for a humanized one. But I got it. Like, if you told me, if I hadn't watched this movie and you told me Quasimodo in a 1939 movie is treated with a lot of compassion by his own movie, I don't think I would have really believed that. That really is an absolutely, but yeah, they were very aware that it really would have been an absolutely awful, like, as the Nazis were, becoming so powerful that they would start a second world war. That is not the right time to be saying that someone should be judged because they're different. That really is the wrong time for that kind of thing. And it really is, like, if I recall, that is one of the things that Zealous also points out. This movie might not be as remembered as it is if it hadn't been made to be so relevant. If they hadn't changed, that's one of the big things she talks about in that video. It was very important to keep changing and updating the Hunchback of Notre Dame because it was not going to be as relevant of a story if they kept just making it the exact same thing. But with this, it very much was, and because this is the one that they used to base so much of the Disney one on. I mean, let's see, when the Disney one came out, 1996, I want to say, I don't think that was a time where there was really, I mean, there's always something, but I'm not sure there was a huge, I mean, maybe crap, I'm sorry, I forget what it's called. I want to say Serbia had some, very xenophobic violence, mass violence around the that time, but I'm not sure the Disney one was made to convince people to steer clear of any specific violence, or but they did make the decision to make it very, it's not just that they're mimicking everything that's in this without understanding it. Clearly they understand that, because they make changes. There are certain things in this movie that don't seem as, by today's standards, and again, like I said, it's 81 years old. Of course it's not, but so the the I would say that some of the time in this movie, when characters talk about Esmeralda, they focus more on the fact that she's beautiful, where in the Disney one, they focus more on the fact that she's a good person. She cares about justice. And, that is something that the yeah, the, let me think. Um, You know, yeah, the to an audience in 1939, you know, I mean, that might have been one of the first, you know, subversions of expectations. You know, she's Romani, but she's beautiful. You know, so maybe it's not because that is one of the things. A lot of people, again, the lizard brain does not like when we meet someone who looks very different from what we're used to seeing, you know, and yeah, if you don't have very if Romani are not integrated where you live, then of course you're not, excuse me, you're not going to be as, you know, and again, that is something like the Disney version. She does look Romani, you know, her skin and her features do look like, you know, Romani, you know, skin color and features. So, you know, but yeah, with this, they, so the, let's see, I guess that is pretty much. But yeah, you know, if they make another one, I hope that it again focuses on the humanity. And yeah, I, you know, if I saw that they were making a version where it's like, you know, those are actors that are really, you know, I'm more than actors. It would be, I'm especially interested in directors and writers. You know, if someone made the, you know, another adaptation of it that where I was already very familiar with and already really respected some of their other work, I might consider watching it in theaters. So, but I do think that is absolutely everything I have to say about this movie. So in this video, it's possible that I'll some point down the line make a review, but you know, with carpal tunnel, I try to avoid, and that's a longer explanation. If at some point down the line, you know, it's possible that at some point down the line I will. And if I do, I probably will put the link to the review in the description box of this video. So, you know, if you're watching this video years from now, you know, check. There might be a link to a review of it. But yeah. And that is it. So I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and recording, and I'll catch